So part of the solution that comes through from this is three pillars to cybersecurity, and those are people, process, and technology. Now, unfortunately, people are the weakest of this, but it's also the easiest to address, right? Awareness and accountability for all of these processes, training and conditional access, those two make such an enormous difference beyond what technology can do. The process becomes part of, or becomes an effect of that training and conditional access, making sure that the right people are receiving the right information, that they have access to those correct environments, and that it's closed off to everybody else. It is hyper important nowadays, right? And then the training to be able to recognize those threats and vulnerabilities when they're actually coming through, and then building in those risk-orientated controls. Effectively, the question that needs to be asked in cybersecurity nowadays is how much risk are you willing to ingest, and where are you willing to ingest it from? Okay, we don't think that this should be an area that should be risked at the moment. So these are the pieces that we really think that should be put in place. The process becomes the next step of all of this, right? So limiting the amount of risk that you've got by having firm processes in place. This is where solutions like DocuWare really come into the forefront. If you can reduce any of the gray space in terms of where the approval process needs to go and what the next steps need to be, those are all areas that we can have a look at. Okay, then that process builds on to multi-step approvals. So if you're a threat actor going into an environment and you see that there's only one approval layer that needs to be made, there's an inbox that you can then go and attack. If you get into that inbox, you can effectively approve. So we also need to make sure that there's audit trails just for the compliance piece. So if there is a breach that comes through and those approval processes are checked, how do we know that they were checked? How do we know at what time they were checked? And how do we know who got access into those environments as well? All right. And then finally, we get onto the technology piece. Now, this is really the supporting structure that allows for the rest of these other two pillars to be built upon. But it's as important as the rest of it, right? So process-driven applications. This is hugely important. Again, limiting that gray space makes an enormous difference to any type of vulnerability assessment that can be done. Having good SSO, MFA, and conditional access pieces in there, information and access management are huge nowadays. Okay, so we need to understand what the identity is, and we need to understand what the access management protocols actually look like. So having any type of conditional access onto those SaaS environments plays a massive part and cuts risk enormously. And then having secure backups when things do go wrong. Because like I said, it's not about if, it's when nowadays. So making sure that all of this gets wrapped up in a full cybersecurity protocol. All of these tools complement an entire security stack. So once you've got all of these layers in place, it's really about defending and being proactive against any threats that could be coming into an environment. But it's also important that these are all linked up into your remediation processes, your backup processes, your log identification to be able to know what's happening in your environment. So it's not just about prevention, it's also about making sure that you're ready for when things do go wrong and that you can restore the environment to a safe place. So a lot of this is about where these invoices are going, how they're being managed, and then how to remediate if things do go wrong.